many franchisees do you have?
There's 8 at this point.
So you've been franchising for how long?
I started about this time last year.
Okay, so you got 8 franchises in a year.
Right, and that was existing when I bought the organization.
Is that something that you have planned to do for 2023?
Absolutely.
The franchise hot seat is for information and entertainment purposes and is not an offer to sell franchises. If the hot seat introduces you to a franchise concept that interests you, you must do your own due diligence before making an investment. Welcome to the Franchise Hot Seat. I'm your host, John Hayes, Director of the Franchise Center at Palm Beach Atlantic University. On today's episode of the Franchise Hot Seat, we feature a concept to be evaluated by our dream team. Let me introduce you to the dream team. CEO of United Franchise Group, Ray Titus. Managing Partner at Planet Fitness Midwest, John Clancy. MPK Equity Partners, Patrick McGee. Co-founder of Pillars of Franchising, Kristin Selmeczy. President and co-owner of Fran Fund Incorporated, Sherry Seiber. First up in the hot seat.
My name is Mark Parks. The name of the business is Preveer Corp, and we are a business consulting and expense management company. Well, I spend my life in public service, so my entire life has been working for others. But I see a need in small business. There are a lot of people who are in business who have no idea some of the things that they need to do. I'm a CPA by profession, so I know a lot about business, and I'm able to guide them in the right direction and help them level up and be more successful. So when I first started the company, I would go in, look at the P&L and the tax reports, and I could identify savings for those companies on the tax side. Then we would plow those revenues into maybe digital marketing or additional staffing to help them be more successful. The other thing that we help them do is be more bankable, because a lot of businesses don't know what they need to look like to get funding from banks. The consulting firm that would help small businesses level up and be more successful, but why it's boutique is because we would give exceptional customer service. I would like to grow the franchise to 100 locations in the next 5 years.
Welcome to the Franchise Hot Seat. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your business, please.
Hello, I'm very excited to be here on the hot seat. My name is Mark Parks and my business is Preveer. Preveer was voted the top emerging franchise of 2022, and what we are is a business consulting and expense management company. It's a business of synergy. What we do is we go to our clients and we try to figure out what their issues are, whether we could save them money or adjust their processes to make them be more successful. Then we have resources, human resources, that are able to implement those processes, and everybody is doing well because we're helping them here on that side, and we're helping those vendors be more successful, and we're also helping our company grow our brand. That is what we do at Preveer, Business Consulting, Expense Management.
Tell us a little bit about the franchise side.
So when I purchased Preveer, there were 8 different locations in 4 different states. So there's 4 here in Florida, and then we have 4 in 4 other states. The franchise is an amazing opportunity for someone looking to start a business because we have a clear track to $100,000 income with no inventory, no pizza making, no donut making, not a lot of employees. You could be working from your home, and we have a clear track to $100,000 helping other businesses be more successful.
So your typical franchisee, does he work out of his home? Does he work with other people, or is he just a one-man band?
So far, the typical franchisee has maybe 2 or 3 teammates. Most of them are family operations where you have a mother and a daughter and a son, and then you have a mother and her son, and then I'm bringing my son and my wife into my business as well. So a lot of them are mom and pop organizations.
Can you explain when you talked about you go in, and I completely get the point where you're maybe looking at the financials of a business, but then you go out and you're working with the vendors. What is that relationship? Tell me how that works.
Okay, the way it works is Preveer has a database. Right now we have 67 vendors. These vendors do bookkeeping, they do digital marketing, they do advertising, they do human resources, they do websites. So they have all of these services that businesses can use. We also have bookkeepers and CPAs and strategic planners. So they're on the vendor side. So when we approach a client, we identify what their challenges are, and we put them in a position not only to tell them what they need to do, but also provide the resource to make it happen.
Okay,
so that makes it a little different than your typical consultant who tells you what to do and then gives you a report and walks away. We actually can implement that plan.
So you come in and you see my expenses for marketing are maybe too high for what my franchisor says I should be spending. And then what? You would go to your contact in advertising or marketing and have them help me get those costs down? Is that?
Right, so we would look at your total expense structure. A lot of times for me, especially with small businesses, I could look at their tax return and I could say, you know, I could save you $20,000, $30,000 over here. Or we could look at their P&L and see where they're spending their money. And we look at maybe their website or their social media marketing and say, are you getting the results that you need? One of the things that's happening now, everybody is doing digital marketing, but we have those firms who know how to do the numbers, who know how to mirror success and know how to make your social media management more successful. With my own company, I use our vendors. So I switched from the vendor that existed when I bought the company. Not only have I made it a fixed cost compared to one that went up incrementally every time a franchise was operated, they post 100% more times than the previous vendor did. And one of the things that happens to me now when I go out to social events, people say, Preveer, it's all over the place. It's all over the place. So that's exactly what we want. So we evaluate, we look at how the strategy is working, we retool if necessary, and then we go forward.
What are the qualifications for your franchisees?
Honestly, there has been just financial qualifications, $100,000 of liquid assets and $400,000 of net worth. My goal moving forward is to be a little more intentional about vetting franchisees, because this is not like McDonald's where you open up a store and foot traffic walks in. People actually have to go out and engage and sell and market and make deals. So we have to make sure that people are comfortable in that space.
So what's the day in the life of the franchisee then?
So the day in the life of a franchisee is following up on connections that they made. They're following up on their digital marketing, and they're calling people and making appointments so that they can set up analysis of their company so they could help them move forward.
So kind of going a little bit further on that, what does your typical engagement look like? For a franchisee, if they have a client, what's the economic relationship between them and the client, and how is that engagement structured?
Okay, so the way it works is the vendors are white label. So from their standpoint, everything that they're getting is coming from Preveer. So typically, I'll give you an example of one of the recent deals. We go in, we look at the entire picture. This person we did bookkeeping for, we did a website, and then we did social media management, which is their posting.
But did you know that that's what you would end up providing them at the outset, or did they hire you just as a general business advisor and then you end up finding all these places to focus? Or
this particular person saw me speak at an engagement, and they said that they just wanted to talk to me because what I do is offer 15-minute consultations, and then we talk, and then we figure out what it is that you need, and then we make those recommendations. So if I met you, we would do the 15-minute consultation. I would do some analysis, and I would say, let me make a proposal for you. come back in a couple of days, give you a proposal, pretty much a la carte, so you could choose, maybe you want this, maybe you don't want that, and then we move you forward.
So the average proposal that you are offering these days is about what amount?
The average is typically, well, so we have recurring revenue, so typically about $1,000 recurring, and then, it could be up to $5,000 for the one-off services.
And what's the total investment?
The total investment is $49,000.
But you expect your franchisees to be going out and giving these same talks that you did, just in that example, right? They would go out and they would have these engagements and they would do these informational talks, and then they would come out and meet with Patrick for 15 minutes, right?
So there's a couple of options. The other thing that we do for our franchisees is they get 200 business leads every month in their geographical area, plus the social media management that where we're pushing out their brand and their name every day, all month. So they're getting that, and ideally, one of the things that I would like to do moving forward is what I call a fast start. So I started off years ago doing financial services. So when you do financial services, typically they make you give a list of maybe 25 to 100 names of people you're going to call immediately. So my fast start would look like that. You come into this business and you tell us 25 to 100 names that you want to approach immediately. The other thing that I want to do is start a grand opening. So they have a grand opening where those 25 to 50 are obviously invited, their church members, their friends, their family, and then the president, me, comes to speak to that audience. So you've done two things there. You've engaged the community and informed them that that person has that business, but you've also solidified and made that person accountable, because now they're in their community and people will see them and say, so how's that business going? So that'll keep them motivated to keep going with that product.
How many
and that service.
franchisees do you have?
There's 8 at this point.
And how long you been in business?
The franchise, the company has been in business since 2019. I bought it July 2022.
So you've been franchising for how long?
I started about this time last year.
Okay, so you got 8 franchises in a year.
Right, and that was existing when I bought the organization.
Oh, it was existing.
Mhm.
Okay. And what is your, talk to me about your numbers, your financials. What does a typical franchise do in revenue?
Typical franchise is, I mean, it's starting slow, so the whole organization last year did $151,000.
All the franchises total?
That's correct.
Okay. And what does the economics look like? What drops to the bottom line? What's your percent earnings?
Well, I'm sorry, that is the drop to the bottom line.
So what was your total revenue?
The total would have been about $270,000 to get $151,000.
Among 8 units.
That's correct. And four of those came on this year, and there was 4 that were existing.
And how much of, tell me about I know you do social media marketing, nothing else, just social media?
Social media marketing, websites, bookkeeping, human resources. We do CRMs. We could do apps. So there's a host of various services, and many
I'm just
more.
talking about straight marketing to your potential customers.
Oh, okay. So yeah, we do social media marketing. We have drop cards. We make calls. We go out into the neighborhood. So we approach it on multiple levels. We had drop direct mail, but I will be reinstituting that because I think that works as well.
What kind of field support do you give to your franchisees?
Well, the field support that we give is we have regular meetings, but the other thing that happens is those vendors like the social media providers and the vendors come in and they come in train the franchisees on how their product really works. Because like me, some of them are not social media people. So those organizations come in and say, this is how our product works, this is how you price it, and this is how you could mark it up to make it reasonable. So we offer that, but also we offer sales training in-house so that they are more prepared and better, more comfortable with selling the products.
Now you're a CPA, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And so if you were to come into my business, I would know, like, you have an area of expertise. I would show you my P&L and I would feel very comfortable with that. your franchisees at this point don't have the expectation of being a CPA or just really having the money to buy into this model, right? So how do you get them ready to go in and know what to look for in a business? I'm still kind of fuzzy on what skill sets they would need to have for me to feel comfortable coming into my business and I just lay out all my financials and say, here you go. Tell me what I need to do. I don't have a clear vision of who these people are, except for they've got, a little bit of money to say, I want the Preveer brand.
Well, that's an interesting point, because I had the same issue when I joined, because honestly, when I started, the trainer was pushing social media management and digital marketing. And I'm thinking, I can't talk to people about it. I don't see myself selling that, and it sounds hard. But what I do have is my market. And sure enough, right when I started this business, I was talking to my client, and she just out of the blue said, my website sucks. And I said, oh, by the way, I can help you with that. So right now, the franchisees, we have one who has a background in IT. So she has that platform where she could advise people and then cross-sell other things. Another one is a nonprofit executive who has, again, another market where people feel comfortable discussing their business with her. Another guy is a pastor. So they all have these markets who they could approach. And if they need a CPA or they need a bookkeeper, they could reach out to our network and they could get that work done as well.
So individual franchisees are using other franchisees that have a particular area of expertise to refer to the clients they've acquired?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's not uncommon for one of us to call the other one and say, hey, I need HR consulting, can you work on this deal for me? Because the franchisees can also serve as vendors. So they could sell their services, like I could do bookkeeping or tax planning for
So it's not
them
profit
as well.
sharing, it's invoicing.
That's
They're going to
correct.
invoice the other franchisee that's the expert,
Yeah.
invoices
That's
the first
correct.
franchise.
Is Mark ready to sell franchises? He hasn't said, but he's got an idea he wants to test with our dream team. He's developed an earned franchise. Is it a good idea? Let's see.
If I could just go back to the selling of franchises.
Okay.
Are you not embracing it, Mark? Are you, is that something that you have planned to do for 2023?
Absolutely. So my understanding is that the FDD needed to be completed before you could do that. So that just got completed a couple of weeks ago. But I have people who are actually waiting, and you all could tell me what you think about this model. Because once again, the key to this business is being able to go out there and make sales and make contacts and close deals. So I have a proposal, and I've talked about this to a number of audiences, and they thought it was okay, but you guys are way higher level than all of the people I've talked to. But we would like to offer a earned franchise. So you, as a potential franchisee, come into the business as a sales rep / management trainee. If you achieve $40,000 of net sales in a rolling 12, and you follow some other standards like attend the trainings that are offered, and of course you have to be someone who fits into the culture and are approved by all the HR standards, we will give you a franchise. But not only will we give you a franchise, we will have a $10,000 line of credit available for you to spend on approved business expenses so that you could get started. Because one of the challenges with new franchisees is if they don't have the capital to do things like join the chamber or to hold an event, they're not able to move forward. So the economics behind that, ideally, so you asked me how many franchises, I would like to do 10 the earned way, where these people earn it, and I would like to do 10 the other way. But the economics on the 10 who earn it, they would be generating about $1.2 million after they get to that $40,000 number. And from my standpoint, I would get $240,000 plus $200 for that pool to help them fund their business
So
expenses.
the earned person would be hired by you as an employee, and then once they achieve the goals you've set, they will have
I
an
didn't
equity
understand
position.
it that way. Is the earned person coming as an employee of yours?
They would be a contractor.
For you?
That's correct.
So
Okay.
you're right. Okay, so you're right.
I didn't hear it that
I
way
didn't
either.
hear it that way either. So they come in as a contractor for you just to sell services under your franchise, under company-owned operation.
With the understanding, if they meet those benchmarks, they will be turned into
And
a
they're going to
franchisee.
be all over the country, or they're going to be in different spots all over?
They could be, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
What do you mean by 40,000 of net sales? What does net sales mean?
So when someone sells a product, so if it's a website, for instance, they have to pay that vendor for their services. So say the vendor is charging $3,000 for the website, then that salesperson / management trainee could mark it up, say they mark it up to $6,000. So the net would be the difference between the cost of goods sold and the total price.
But $40,000 in net sales, I mean, that doesn't cover the cost of the of your contractor for a year, would it?
Their total commission, they're not getting any paid.
They would get all that money, the
They
40,000.
get 40%, and I get 60% of that 40,000.
So they would get 40% of the 40,000.
Correct.
Which doesn't seem like enough to put, bread on the table if this is their full-time job. Am I thinking about that right?
Well, ideally they would exceed that, because that's really the concept of the franchise. Because if you became a franchisee, you would need to exceed that.
So
But
you would say that's the minimum number that they have to hit to earn the franchise.
exactly.
Is that what you're saying?
In a rolling 12, yes.
Yeah, I think you should use the Titus Center internship program to maybe get some of these folks for you as they're working toward their graduation, and they come out of the Titus Center with a pretty good understanding. That might be a good opportunity
Good idea.
to
And
talk to John
that's one of the
about.
groups I talk to.
Yeah,
I talk to
good.
students from PBA.
Yeah, that's an interesting option for
Because
you.
otherwise you would need somebody that had another job
For sure.
so they could buy groceries.
Right, and that has been one of the challenges, because again, it's commission only. You only eat if you kill something that day, right? So as a franchisee, if you're not aggressive enough to go out there and make it happen, you'll revert back to whatever you were doing back before. So this is why I developed this model, because you have people who know the business, they know the culture, they've proved that they can make some sales, and then they can move forward, versus someone who comes in and says, man, I haven't made a sale this month, I'm going to go back to doing what I was doing before.
If I'm understanding this right, though, there's this ongoing component. It's not just, you make the sale and pass it off to a vendor. Is there not an ongoing engagement with the client? Or am I thinking about it wrong?
So there's two approaches. One is where you sell a website by a certain vendor, that vendor gives you a agreed upon percentage, and you pass that client off. The other is you sell a website to that customer, and it's ongoing dollars coming in. You engage with them every month. So for instance, one of the vendors I use, every month they give us a statistical report, and then they give us the calendar of the posts for the month. So what we do is we take that information and we go over it with the client, so that they know, here's how your social media management did, here's the numbers, here's how you're increasing. And then we also look at the calendar and say, is this in agreement with what you would like to see this month? So we engage them. And again, that boutique concept is that we really make them our friend and build long-lasting relationships. But I did want to go back to a question about being able to make a living. I think we have a clear path to a six-figure income. And when I talk to you about this, I think it sounds pretty simple. But if you are able to sell $700 of recurring services every month for a year, you've generated $8,400 worth of income. That's $100,000 of recurring income, and that's not including all the one-off websites that you're doing every month as you're doing that. So $700 every month, that's small. That could be less than one sale or as many as 3, but you could make that a situation where you're making $100,000 every year.
So your
recurring
ideal
revenue.
candidate is a great salesperson
Ideal candidate
For a
is
franchisee.
for a franchisee.
Franchisee.
Yeah.
Is a great salesperson.
the ideal one would be a great salesperson. I will tell you that I am not a great salesperson, but I could close a deal. So we need someone, because understand this, here in America and all across the world, people are struggling to find human resources to do their work. We literally have some of the best resources in the world. The vendors that I use for my company are outstanding, and they're coming directly out of our database. So we're able to supply employers with that resource, and the COVID-19 pandemic made remote work and virtual work very comfortable. So we're positioned very well to take advantage of that.
It would seem like it's a big and probably growing responsibility for the franchisor to ensure that you do have good vendors and that they are taking care of your franchisees and their clients well. And so is that a big part of what you do, is that vendor management?
Right, so I do talk to the vendors, and I recommend when the franchisees engage a vendor that they speak to them personally to make sure that they understand what's going on. All of the vendors currently in the database have exceptional records. They all do good work, and when we hear something other than that, we visit them in a meeting and discuss what the issues were, and if they don't work out, then they would have to step aside.
I did notice that in your FDD that you had a lot of places in which you talked about the franchisor will make decisions on vendors.
That's correct.
And I was like, wow. I mean, there's a lot of different places where systems and services and vendors and everything was pretty much going to be decided by the franchisor.
That's correct.
There was one thing that I am a little bit, I'll just say, kind of scratching my head about. And part of it could just be because I think this is, in one hand, it seems like such a simple model, and then in another hand, it seems like kind of a little more complex, and it could just be like me. But you have minimum royalties. And so one of the other episodes that was kind of a concern for somebody, and it's kind of a concern for me too, because we never know what's going to happen, right? And certainly at a time like we had the pandemic, we have these economic downturns, and I understand from a franchisor perspective why we do it. But in some of these models that the mission, I'll say, isn't quite crystal clear to me. I'm not sure why we have to do minimum royalties. I mean, you could probably answer that better than I can because you've got so many brands in your umbrella.
Well, on the startup operations,
Right.
I think it makes a lot of sense for both parties, really, because they can kind of know what their royalty is going to be, but from the franchisor side, it kind of guarantees some cash flow to run the business,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
you got to up and coming. I think as the bigger brands, it becomes less and less important.
Sure.
As they've been open for 10, 20, 30 years. This is more of a startup
Yeah, it's
scenario.
not huge,
So
but
no, eight franchisees, and
Yeah.
kind of starting up in the middle of the pandemic. So,
yeah.
so let's find out what everybody thinks here. Patrick, what do you think of Preveer?
You know, it's a really interesting concept, and one of the amazing things about franchising is you discover these opportunities that you never would think could be franchised. And for me, I would put that in this category. I think it's a new brand. It's probably too early for something that we would want to get involved with. So for that reason, I'd say I'm warm, but I think there's a lot of opportunity here, and different franchises appeal to different people. So, clearly what you're doing is resonating. So congratulations.
Thank you.
I would like to see it packaged differently, the way in which it's presented. I'd like to see the way that you define your ideal candidate as a franchisee defined a little better, so that when you explain what it is, there's a vision, right? I had a hard time kind of following, because, well, we do a little this and we do a little that. So I think if you could come out with that a little more clear. I agree with whoever said something about the website. There's some things on your website you might want to have somebody just check out, some spelling and grammatical things that are still a little off right now. But I do think there's a need for some of these services. I am somebody who hates doing my books. Don't tell anyone I hate it. So I would be somebody who'd say, you know what, bring me a bookkeeper. That would be something I would use for sure. So I will tell you that I'm warm, but I would like to see some of those changes made.
Okay, thank you.
I'm like twofold. I'm warm and hot. So I'd say I'm hot on this brand and the franchising idea of it. The part that I'd like to see you really focus on is adding more franchisees and growing the brand. And when you get enough of them out there, I think you'll have some people that'll really take off and can really succeed with your services and the vendors and everything you have. You've got a good way about you. You certainly have expertise. I love the idea of outsourcing during this time. I think it really resonates out there. So I think you got a great opportunity in front.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would say I'm warm too, in that I love businesses with no cost of goods sold. I love that. It is my favorite thing. From someone who has a business with cost of goods and no cost of goods. So, given your margins, the numbers you gave me, I mean, you're a 35% or 40% margin.
That's right.
I mean, you can print money if you can get your top line up. And I think you hit the nail on the head. What you're really looking for is killer salespeople, because you have 67 vendors that are white label. You have the experts in your toolkit. What you need is killers to go out there and convince people, small businessmen, right? Small business women, men, all these people. You're not looking for, you wouldn't help me because I have a CFO, I have all these, people that I pay salaries to that do all these things. But there is a huge demand, like Ray just said, down at these smaller companies that are doing these things poorly, that if you get the right salesperson to approach them using your vendor quiver, man, you could really raise these revenues. Because, the revenues that you gave me, it's barely a full-time job. But if you get, like Ray said, you go out there and you get a good, solid franchisees, and you get that number up, that revenue number up, 35, 40%, no one's going to argue with no cost of goods.
Right, okay, thank you.
Well, there's a lot going on there for me. One, there's no doubt that a low cost of entry franchise system could be very interesting to a number of candidates. On the other hand, the cost is so low to enter that will eliminate some of your prospects that they're looking for a higher ROI on that initial investment. So that's going to be a little difficult. The thing we love about franchising is that it's a repeatable process.
That's right.
You need a hero unit that's not you, probably, to illustrate the power that you have behind all these white label vendors, because it sounds like, and this might sound offensive and I don't mean it that way, but you're a little bit of a social worker here, right? You're wanting to give back, you're wanting to get people started, you want to give people opportunity, and the whole deal is really great of what services you're offering. I think you need to tighten up a little bit around the edges and make your purpose clearer, your potential candidates clearer, and make sure what the franchisor is offering and what the franchisees should deliver is clear as a bell.
Okay.
And on that note, I'm warmish.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for joining us on the Franchise Hot Seat, Mark. We appreciate your time today.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I think it went pretty well. I mean, they were all warm, and one person was hot. I need to heat it up a little more, but we're a beginning organization, so certainly we're going to move forward. One of the comments was that we need to build more franchises, and that is absolutely the goal. So I think, on that tip, to get all the expert advice was very helpful.
Thanks for joining us for the Franchise Hot Seat. And remember, our purpose is to inform and educate. We are not selling franchises. Do your homework before investing in any business. Franchising is a powerful methodology for business ownership, and it may be the best way for you to own a business and build personal wealth. But franchising is not without risk, and it's not for everyone. Some quick thank yous to our sponsors. Transworld Business Advisors is the world leader in the marketing and sales of businesses, franchises, and mergers and acquisitions. They've got 240 offices worldwide. Accurate Franchising is a full-service consulting and development agency that helps franchise companies develop their brands and then expand via franchise sales. Crank Enterprises is a venture marketing company introducing a modern-day twist to private equity. Their mission: turn ideas into dough. You want to sit in the franchise hot seat, or do you have a question for the Titus Center? Contact me at tituscenter.com. I'm John Hayes, leading the Titus Center for Franchising, where we're educating the next franchise generation.